Hi guys. A new profile. Somebody with the same incarnation cross and activation sequence as Richard Rudd, but not in the same order. And also, this is 3-5, and Richard is 4-6. So, and there are different open centers. So we're gonna do as I always do, start with human design and kind of see if we can do it a little bit faster than usually, um, and not going so much in detail, but like really looking at what's popping out and the big scheme, and then do the same thing with the gene keys. So let's see. So this is a man born in 71, and he's a generator. He has this defined sacral center where he has energy like a treasure box, and every time he does something, it's like he pays a coin. And in order to feel satisfied, he wants to feel regenerated. If he pays something and then there is no energy, there's no regeneration, he's going to feel frustrated. So that is like the warning sign for this type, for the generator type. When we feel frustrated, we should take that as a warning sign that we're using our energy in a way that is not satisfying. And that could eventually lead to burnout or boredom in the best case, but burnout in the worst case. Um, and this is really where life comes from, and where to always go back to for the generator. Go back to the gut feeling, go back to how it feels, go back to the intuition, go back to what do I have energy for? Almost like that. What I paid to do this. This is the way that this works. To not spend energy on things that don't feel like they have a value. We know that this is a pure generator because we don't have the emotional center defined. And when we look at the type of authority, we start from the right. So if the emotional is colored in or defined, we know it's an emotional generator. And then we look at the two other awareness centers here, and if the sacral is defined, it is a sacral generator. And since the splenic is not defined, there is not a splenic activation. What is the difference? So here would be somebody who's kind of here to feel a lot of emotions and to have to wait out that wave of emotions before we can make decisions. But that's not colored in, that's not defined. So here we have somebody who actually can feel their truth in the now, who has that like that intuition in the moment of knowing, kind of the body language of being yes, kind of moving towards things that are good for you, or moving back for things that are not good for you. Like, do you want some soda water? And that would be the body, like, going towards it or going back. So kind of learning to feel your own body language, and you're like yeah, like, those kind of sounds that we make, that might not always be verbal. They can be verbal, but they're not really a yes or a no. They're not really words. So learning to feel that in your body, what is a yes and what is a no in your body. And then we have a defined G center, so somebody that knows, that can feel from like the inner guidance, that has a direction, that knows, knowing who we are, knowing where we're going, knowing what love is, and not being so easily influenced in that. It doesn't depend who you're with. It doesn't depend where you are at. You can feel where you're going. You can feel who you are, and that's consistent. That doesn't change. Another way of speaking about the centers that color in is that they're consistent. That's how the energy comes from us and go out into the world. So we have a consistent way of processing in those centers. The same thing with the mind and the head. There is a consistent way of processing information, processing thoughts, coming to conclusions. And we know here that we can see that there's like one little island of two centers up here, one little island of two centers here. So there is a split. And knowing that this is a sacral generator, as I was saying before, always coming back to intelligence of the body and to the intuition. So here, if in this split, if it feels like we're only kind of functioning based on the mind and our thinking, we are out of alignment with our own authority. So coming back into the body, and always starting from the body and including the mind, including the thoughts, and including, in a way, this brilliance, that the potential for the brilliance this person has, in having a lot of activations. And also the red activations, we know that the red side is the soul side, and the black side is the personality, or even ego, you could say. Mm, so that knowing that there are a lot of activation in the head, so somebody who's here to be inspired, who's here to inquire, who's here to have a lot of ideas, who's here to find understanding. That's the gift frequencies of all these different gates that we have activated: the 11, the 4, the 63, and the 64. Those are the gift frequencies. And the even higher frequencies, like the glimpses of this, could be illumination, could be to finding truth, to finding to find uh, like even higher levels of like light language almost. And that's what we could glimpse into with this kind of incarnation for us, having the 63 and the 64, which are the last chapters of of the Gene Key books, and the last hexagrams in the I Ching, that have to do with truth and illumination. So there is, the soul kind of has that quest. Also knowing what we're going to go into in the Gene Keys, that the soul can only express itself once we have come through, you could say, the main challenges of the personality. Because we could stay in the ego forever, or we could tap into the soul's quest journey, and longing, right? And we know that all the white centers are centers where the energy comes from the outside, from other people, from what's around us, and goes into us. And we have to filter a lot of information, a lot of energies. And that's also why we can become influenced through these centers, when we feel pressure through those centers, and we could be manipulated. So that's why we could live a whole life not respecting our own genetic blueprint, but actually living through all the information, the scattered information that we take in from the outside. So that this is really helping us to be aware. And that's when you do your profile, you're going to see the not self keynotes and the not self questions, to make sure that you are living, that you're not living from the white centers, that you're living from what's consistent in you, from where you are active, where you have your activations. And here there is this center, the center that has to do with not feeling inherently our worthiness if we don't like prove it, if we don't do things. So this kind of duality between doing and being, where we want to have balance, want to have both, but tending to maybe prove that we are worthy by doing or promising. It's not always only by doing and acquiring things, or showing results. Can also be by promising and living for others. And then we also have the open emotional, that has to do with with having when we get other people's emotions, we take them in and they kind of amplify, because open centers work kind of amplifiers, and feeling could be able to maybe feel very uncomfortable with other people's kind of distorted emotions. In the center we have crisis, and we have dishonor, weakness, conflict, victimization, reaction, and desire. Those are the shadow frequencies of the center. So then what could happen is that we would avoid confrontation or truth, because it just feels so uncomfortable to have to feel other people's emotions and not know how to process them. So those two centers together can kind of be that, avoiding confrontation and then proving ourselves. And your whole life you could be busy by doing that, but that's going to be a life of frustration for a generator, because that's not using your energy right. Then we also have the open splenic center that has to do with the immune system, that has to do with instinct. So this is about, thinking about your health, because you can't really afford to not care about your health. So every time you feel yourself holding on to something, it is the center for instinct and fear. So wondering, asking yourself, why am I holding on to this? What is the fear of letting go? Because if you hold on, is what you hold on to good for you on a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level. If it's not good for you, then to learn to let go of it, even if it can be a bit scary. That's important. This has to do a lot with relationships, for example, holding on to something that might not serve us, but it feels more safe than to let go. Kind of the same archetype as Taurus in astrology. To hold on to things just because we don't know, it feels safer to hold on than to let go. And it's also sometimes about what we are building in the outer, um, so that we would hold on, because it feels like we're building something, but maybe it's not actually adding anything to our lives. There can be this pressure from the outside of like feeling stress from the outside of what we need to do, and sometimes hurrying to get it done just to get rid of that pressure. But in learning this, all the open center is learning what comes from the outside, what's mine and what comes from the outside, and to be able to filter out what's not ours, and instead becoming wise about that, and even be able to reflect it back to somebody that has a lot of emotional outbursts, mirroring back that to that person, or the proving, see other people that are running in their wheels, and just and be able to maybe point that out, or to be able to be a role model for something different. And then the open throat can be about seeking attention. Even the ego center is a bit about feeling undervalued. So sometimes with open throat, we seek attention through the way that we express ourselves, or we want to be seen. The open center can also be we are also manipulating the center. So depending who we are with, or maybe what organization we work for, we can speak in a different way, and feel ourselves, wow, I kind of sound different with these people than with these people. I become a bit different, and to be aware of that, and to make sure that we go back. Here we have a G center that is really defined, a lot of definition, a lot of love gates, in the center, and somebody who can really feel their direction. So always respect your own truth, your own direction when you speak. Not let that be manipulated or influenced too much by the outside. When we look at the channels here, how many channels do we have? Actually, it looks like we have only 2 channels. So the first channel is the 214, and this is a tantric channel. This is a very powerful channel. It's the 2 is the direction. It's the magnetic monopole in human design, is how we call it. It's really having the direction. It's kind of an inner GPS that is always on, and it's a kind of a feminine intuition of knowing where we're going, and orienting ourselves in the moment. And the 14 is more, so if the 2 is the water, the 14 is more about the fire. It's in the codon ring on fire as well, and it's having that power, that sacral power, that like life force. So when we couple the direction, the feminine direction, like orienting, with the masculine power, we say that this channel is the keeper of the keys, because you have the direction, you have the power, you have the keys to unlock anything. So this is really the main channel. It's also a tantric channel because it goes from the sacral, from the life force, up to love, right? So when we connect our heart with our animal, with our lower chakras, the higher and the lower, it is a tantric channel. We're refining those more primal energies through the heart. So that's something that's very central for the soul. Let's see where we have them in the chart. 8, 13. Saturn and Jupiter. Yeah, so it's really big planets. So this is powerful for this person. It's a line 6 and a line 5. So it's also being able to see a lot, see a lot in this realm, and see a lot of things, that how primal energy is used, and how it's maybe not always used through the heart, and having this part of like how this person expresses itself and how life goes has to do with energy, has to do with energy. Jupiter is about the law, is something that we're going to come back to. It's going to be a theme in our lives. And then we have this channel, like I said, up here, we already spoke about the inquiry and the understanding, that is important to have that understanding. when we speak about the when we speak about the incarnation cross, this is adventure and hunger, you could say, or impatience sometimes even. So it's here in the on the abstract side of the body graphs. It's about wanting to experience things and kind of feeling like I have to go there and experience it. In the lower frequency, it's kind of about hunger, adventure, and always seeking more, always being hungry for something new. And in the higher frequency, it's really about boundlessness and adventure, not like needing it, but doing it for the experience and the joy. And on this side, we have, and it's also to do it, to kind of understand it, to be done with it, to be checked. Okay, I've done that, I understood that. So that's his incarnation crest. That's kind of the drive, destiny, and drive for this kind of person. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think we could go through the rest in the other chart. So maybe let's just stop here and do the rest from the gene key chart. So bye for now.